Hello, and welcome to Slow English Stories. I'm so glad you're here. Today, I'm going to tell you a story called The Lost Letter. This story is for intermediate learners, level B1. I will speak slowly and clearly. My advice? Listen one time without reading. Then, listen again with the subtitles on. Ready? Let's begin. The Lost Letter. Maria worked at the post office in a small town by the sea. She was 62 years old, and she had worked there for almost 40 years. Every morning, she opened the office at 8 o'clock, made a cup of coffee, and sorted the mail. She knew everyone in town, and everyone knew her. One rainy Tuesday in October, Maria was cleaning behind an old wooden shelf. The shelf was heavy, and nobody had moved it for years. When she pushed it away from the wall, something small fell to the floor. It was a letter. The envelope was yellow with age, and the stamp was very old. Maria picked it up and read the date. The letter was posted in 1985, almost 40 years ago. The letter was addressed to a man called Thomas Reed at number 12, Harbor Street. But there was a problem. Maria knew Harbor Street very well, and she knew that Thomas Reed had moved away many years ago. Nobody knew where he lived now. Maria looked at the back of the envelope. The sender's name was written in small, careful handwriting. Eleanor Voss. Maria's heart jumped. She knew Eleanor. Eleanor was an old lady who lived alone at the edge of town, in a white house with a blue door. She rarely came to the village anymore. Maria had a difficult decision to make. The letter was private. It was not her letter to open. But if she did nothing, the letter would stay lost forever. So that evening, after work, Maria put on her raincoat and walked to the white house with the blue door. Eleanor opened the door slowly. She was surprised to see Maria standing in the rain. "Maria? Is everything all right?" "I found something today," Maria said. "Something that belongs to you." She took the letter out of her pocket and held it out. Eleanor looked at the envelope for a long time. Her hands began to shake. "Where did you find this?" she whispered. "Behind a shelf at the post office. It fell there in 1985, I think. It was never delivered. I'm so sorry." Eleanor invited Maria inside. They sat by the fire, and Eleanor told her the story. 40 years ago, she had been in love with Thomas Reed. He had asked her to marry him, but she was afraid, and she said she needed time. Thomas waited for 2 weeks. Then he decided to leave town and start a new life in Canada. The night before he left, Eleanor finally wrote her answer in a letter. The answer was yes, but he never replied. Eleanor said quietly, "So, I believed he had changed his mind. I believed he didn't love me anymore." She looked at the fire. "And he never received my answer. He thought I said no." Maria felt tears in her eyes. "We have to find him," she said. "It's not too late." The next day, Maria started searching. She asked the oldest people in town. She wrote to the post office in Canada. She searched on the internet at the library. After 3 weeks, she found an address in a small Canadian town called Marble Lake. She wrote a short, polite letter explaining everything, and she sent it with Eleanor's original letter inside. A month passed. Nothing happened. Then, one bright cold morning in December, a taxi stopped in front of the white house with the blue door. An old man stepped out. He had gray hair and walked with a stick, but his eyes were warm and full of hope. In his hand, he held a yellow envelope. Eleanor opened the door. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "I got your letter," Thomas said with a small smile. "It arrived a little late, but my answer is still the same." And so, 40 years after it was written, the lost letter finally did its job. That's the end of our story. Now, let's check some useful vocabulary from the story. I'll explain each word in simple English. Number 1. To sort. Maria sorted the mail every morning. To sort means to put things into groups or into the correct order. For example, I sorted my clothes into summer clothes and winter clothes. Number 2. Envelope. An envelope is the paper cover that holds a letter. You write the address on the envelope. For example, she put the birthday card in a red envelope. Number 3. To be addressed to someone. The letter was addressed to Thomas Reed. This means his name and his address were written on it. For example, this package is addressed to my neighbor, not to me. Number 4. Handwriting. Handwriting is the way a person writes with a pen. Everyone's handwriting is different. For example, my doctor's handwriting is impossible to read. Number 5. To whisper. Eleanor whispered, "Where did you find this?" To whisper means to speak very, very quietly. For example, the students whispered at the back of the class. Number 6. To change your mind. Eleanor believed Thomas had changed his mind. To change your mind means to change your decision or your opinion. For example, I wanted pizza, but I changed my mind and ordered pasta. Number 7. To deliver. The letter was never delivered. To deliver means to take something to a person or a place. For example, the restaurant delivers food to your house. Number 8. Hope. The old man's eyes were full of hope. Hope is the feeling that something good is possible. For example, she never lost hope, even in difficult times. Wonderful. Now, let's test your understanding with 3 quick questions. I will ask each question, then give you a few seconds to think. Ready? Question 1. Where did Maria find the lost letter? Think about it. Did you get it? She found it behind an old wooden shelf at the post office. It fell there in 1985. Question 2. Why did Thomas leave the town 40 years ago? Take a moment. That's right. He asked Eleanor to marry him, but she didn't answer quickly, so he believed her answer was no, and he moved to Canada. Question 3. How did Maria find Thomas's new address? Think carefully. Yes. She asked the oldest people in town, she wrote to the post office in Canada, and she searched on the internet at the library. After 3 weeks, she found him in a town called Marble Lake. If you answered all 3 questions, excellent work. If not, don't worry. That's exactly why we listen twice. So now, let's hear the story one more time. This time, just relax and listen. Notice how much more you understand. Here we go. Maria was 62 years old, and she had worked at the post office in her small seaside town for almost 40 years. One rainy Tuesday in October, while she was cleaning behind a heavy wooden shelf, a small yellow envelope fell to the floor. It was a letter posted in 1985, and it had never been delivered. The letter was addressed to Thomas Reed, a man who had left the town many years before. On the back, Maria saw the sender's name, Eleanor Voss, the old lady who lived alone in the White House with the blue door. That evening, Maria walked through the rain and gave Eleanor the letter. Eleanor's hands shook when she saw the envelope. 40 years ago, she explained, Thomas had asked her to marry him. She was afraid, and she asked for time. When she finally wrote her answer, yes, Thomas never received it. The letter was lost behind the shelf. He waited, heard nothing, and left for Canada with a broken heart. And Eleanor, who never got a reply, believed he had stopped loving her. 2 people, separated for 40 years, by one lost letter. But Maria refused to accept this sad ending. She searched for 3 weeks. She asked the old people in town. She wrote letters. She searched the internet at the library. Finally, she found an address in a small Canadian town called Marble Lake, and she sent Eleanor's original letter with a short note explaining everything. A month later, on a bright, cold morning in December, a taxi stopped in front of the White House with the blue door. An old man with gray hair stepped out, holding a yellow envelope. When Eleanor opened the door, Thomas smiled and said, "I got your letter. It arrived a little late, but my answer is still the same." And that is how, 40 years after it was written, the lost letter finally did its job. Beautiful, isn't it? You have now heard the story twice, and I'm sure you understood much more the second time. That feeling? That's your English growing. Here is your question for the comments. Do you think Eleanor should have written her letter earlier? Why or why not? Write your answer in English in the comments. I read every single one. If this story helped you, please subscribe and turn on notifications because we publish a new slow English story every week. Listen to this episode again tomorrow, and you will be surprised how much more you understand. Thank you for learning with me today. Goodbye, and see you in the next story.